Hello everyone, my name is Kitty and I'm here today to share with you how I made this dress. Now this dress is inspired by the one the doll wears in the recent TV show Squid Game, and I have put the pattern up in my Etsy shop if you would like to download it and perhaps make a dress like this for yourself. I've also made a video showing how I made the red jumpsuit that the workers wear, so definitely stick around for that. Otherwise, I'm very excited to share my process, so let's just jump right in. Now for materials for this project, I'm just going to be using some things I already had on hand. So I'm going to be using less than 1 yard of this yellow cotton gingham, about 2.5 yards of this orange poly cotton, some yellow thread, interfacing, and a long zipper. I think it's about 60 centimeters. You can start by printing out your pattern. Make sure the scale is 100% and you print it on the correct paper size, A4 or US letter. After printing out your pattern, you can assemble it into a grid that's going to be 5 pages wide and 7 pages tall for a total of 35 pages. You can trim the margins and tape it together as needed. After you've finished assembling the grid, you can cut the pattern out to your size. I will be making mine in a size medium, and I will be cutting it out with that additional 1-inch allowance for a back closure. You of course don't have to cut it out with that addition, and you can finish the back of your dress however you prefer. Now I can lie my pattern pieces on top of my fabric and start cutting everything out. I am taking care to make sure that I cut the correct pattern pieces out of the correct color of fabric. Now because this orange fabric is harvested from an old failed project, I did have to sort of tinker with it to get all my pieces cut out, and I did end up having to piece together my half circle skirt. So hopefully it will be a little bit easier for you when you're cutting out if you're just cutting from a bolt of fabric. I also cut out 2 pieces of interfacing for my collar. That's just going to give it a nice crisp look. And here is everything cut out and ready to go. You should have orange bodice front, orange bodice back, orange bodice front facing, orange bodice back facing, orange bodice side front, orange bodice side back. You should have 4 collar pieces, 1 collar stand, 2 collar pieces cut out of interfacing, yellow bodice front, yellow bodice back, 2 sleeves, and 1 half circle skirt. Now it may seem like a lot of bodice pieces, but that is because the dress we're making has this fake jumper skirt and blouse look. So let's create the fake jumper skirt and bodice combo to this dress. First, take the yellow bodice front and the yellow bodice back, and with pretty sides or right sides touching, match the shoulders together and stitch. I like to use a straight stitch and then go back and finish the edge with a zigzag stitch. And for this shoulder, I like to press the seam allowance over and top stitch it down. Next, match the shoulders with pretty sides touching of the orange bodice front to the orange bodice back. And go ahead and match the shoulder edges of the facing too. Now you can stitch these edges together. Now lay the orange bodice right side facing up, and then lay the facing on top with the right side facing down. The right sides should be facing one another of each piece. Match the edges of the neckline together and pin them in place. Now stitch around the neckline. After stitching, you can add notches and clip the seam allowance to make it easier when turning it. After turning the facing, folding it over the seam on the neckline towards the wrong side of the orange bodice, you can press that neckline with an iron and get that edge nice and sharp. Now lay that yellow bodice down with the right side facing up. You are going to lay the orange bodice on top of it, its right side also facing up. You can now match the edges of these bodices together and use lots of pins to secure them in place. This is how your center bodice pieces should look. This is how we're going to be faking that jumper skirt. Now you can top stitch the orange bodice's neckline to your yellow bodice, and then baste stitch all the other edges together. Here you can see me adding a top stitch around the neckline of my orange jumper skirt. This is just to secure that neckline to the yellow bodice underneath. And then I just baste all the other edges together. This will make it easier when we start adding our other bodice pieces. Next, I attach my orange bodice side front pieces to my bodice. I first match pretty sides together and stitch, working carefully as I match the curved edges together. And then I repeat as I attach my side back pieces to the back of my bodice. Again, just working very carefully and slowly as I match these curved edges together. Now we can add the sleeve to the armhole of the bodice. First, between the marks on the sleeve pattern, make a line of long length straight stitches. You can pull the hanging threads on this stitch to gather down that area to about 10 centimeters. After adding the gathering to the top of the sleeve, you can match it into the armhole on the side of your bodice. Make sure to match pretty sides touching and pin these pieces together. You can adjust the gathers if needed to better fit the sleeve into the armhole. And you can repeat for the other sleeve, matching these two edges together and pinning them in place. Once everything has been pinned together, you can go ahead and stitch the sleeve into the armhole. Next, we're going to sew the sides of the bodice together. Fold the bodice in half along that top shoulder seam. Match the armpits of the bodice together and pin the sides of the bodice to one another. This will be creating one long seam from the sleeve down to the bottom of the bodice. After matching and pinning, you can sew the sides together. Now we can add a simple hem to the bottom edge of the sleeves. First, I remove this from my machine so that I can slip the sleeve onto the arm of my machine easily. Now the wrong side of my sleeve is facing outward, and I just fold over that bottom edge 2 times so that I'm able to cover the raw edge, and then I just top stitch it down in place. And I repeat for the other sleeve. Again, just folding over that raw edge 2 times towards the inside of the bodice and then top stitching it down. At this point, this is how your bodice should look. Go ahead and open it up, and then use a pin to mark the center front of the waist edge of your bodice. Use a pin to mark the center front of your half circle skirt as well. And then, pretty sides touching, match the skirt and the bodice together. I like to start matching the center fronts together and then work out from there. Once you have matched the top edge of your half circle skirt to the waist edge of your bodice, you can sew the skirt to the bodice. Now your skirt may be a little wider than your bodice, so go ahead and trim that edge so they are the same. Next, I'm going to be adding interfacing to one layer of my collar. I start by matching the rough glue side of the interfacing to the wrong side of one of my collar pieces. Then I press it with an iron for a couple seconds to make sure it's completely fused together. But please check out your own interfacing's instructions. Next, I match both sides of my collar together, pretty sides touching, and then I stitch around the outside edges. After stitching both sides of the collar together, I trim my seam allowance and cut in notches so that it's easier to turn right side out. Then I go ahead and turn it and press those edges with an iron to give it a very nice crisp finish. Next, I find the center front of my bodice and mark it with a pin. And from that pin on the center front of my bodice, I start matching my collar pieces to the neckline of my bodice. And I kind of work from the center front outwards, pinning everything in place. And then you can just stitch the collar pieces to the neckline of your bodice. Now I'm going to show you how I finished the back edge of my dress. But please remember, I did add that additional room for a back closure that is marked on the pattern. You of course don't have to add that additional allowance, and you can finish the back of your dress any way you like. So I start by folding in the back edge of the dress about 1.5 centimeters and then top stitching it down. I fold the back edge of the dress in a second time. This time the fold is about 4 centimeters deep. I pin it in place and then press down that folded edge with my iron. Finally, I add stitching just on the neckline to secure that back folded edge in place. Now to add the collar band. Lay your collar band on top of the collar. Fold the collar band's edge in a little bit to cover up that raw edge. Now stitch the collar band on top of the collar, making sure right sides are together. Cut your collar band if needed and then fold that edge in to finish the other side. And here is what it should look like. Now you're going to take that collar band and fold it over the seam allowance. You're going to fold it with the seam allowance a second time and then top stitch it to the inside of your bodice. And this is what your collar should look like from the inside and the outside. Now it's time to add a back closure. I go ahead and figure out where I'm going to put my zipper, add a few pins to keep it in place, and then stitch it. There are a lot of really great in-depth zipper tutorials out there, and I recommend you check them out if you're looking for something a little more detailed. After adding my zipper, I finish up that back seam, and then I decided I wanted my dress a little bit shorter, so I trimmed the bottom edge, and then finally I gave it a very simple rolled hem. All I did was fold that bottom edge up 2 times towards the inside of the dress, and then top stitch it down in place. And finally, the dress is finished. I decided to pair it with some stockings and a wig for the final look. And please keep in mind, this pattern is available on my Etsy if you would like to make this for yourself. Happy Halloween! And thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video and would like to see other fun DIY videos, please like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.